There we go. Hello, everybody. Good morning and welcome to today's webinar called Sales Leadership Explained, brought to you by the Canadian Professional Sales Association and our accredited partner, Agnes Lan of Change Connect. My name is Rupalin and I will be moderating today's session. In this webinar with Agnes Lan, Vice President of Sales at Change Connect, we will cover the key competencies required to excel in sales management, including strategic planning, team leadership, sales coaching, performance evaluation, and sales process optimization. We'll learn about enhanced sales leadership skills and the ability to drive sales performance, improved team motivation, productivity, and collaboration, streamlined sales processes leading to increased efficiency and revenue growth. And just a quick reminder to mute yourself if you don't mind. And stronger customer relationships and improved customer satisfaction. Your host today, as mentioned, is Agnes Lan, VP of Business Development at Change Connect, and she offers customized solutions for small to mid-sized businesses with a focus on sales transformation to help them work more efficiently and effectively. Change Connect helps businesses reconfigure their sales compensation structures to align with company objectives, implement sales training programs, revamp sales hiring processes, and provide scalable change management for specific sales needs. Now, just for some quick housekeeping rules, please note that all of today's attendees have been placed on mute for today's session, and that you can ask questions or make comments using the chat function of your Zoom dashboard. This workshop will be recorded and a link to the recording will be sent, as well as a certificate of attendance soon after the session. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Agnes to start.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How are you? So, Rupalin asked me to come and speak to you guys for an hour today. In prep, obviously, we're all salespeople, so I'm going to be very transparent. We're in prep because we are running a 2-day boot camp next month in sales leadership. What I ended up doing was looking over the 2-day boot camp content and dragged a bunch of slides and content from those 2 days to today's conversation. And I realized I dragged a bit too much. So we're going to do a choose your own adventure conversation today. I have 4 agenda items. I'm going to let you guys pick which one we talk about. And as we gone through one section, you get to pick another section until the time's up at 12 o'clock. How does that sound? Fantastic. All right. Rupalin, I'm not going to see everybody because I'm going to put on full screen. Just let me know if there's any questions, okay?
You got it.
Fantastic. Do this. Everyone see this okay? All right, so let's start out with this slide. Why am I here? Like, who is this and what is she teaching about me? Or what is she teaching and why is she asked to speak here? So I run a sales advisory consultancy. So we do all things. We think of us as a management consulting firm. We do anything and all things that have to do with sales, including sales recruitment, sales training, sales strategy. Right now, we're getting quite booked up for September, October, November for those 2 days strategy sessions. We actually, even for the smaller guys, do fractional sales management. So anything and all things that have to do with sales, we do, even CRM implementation, anything, even with technology. Nowadays, there's so many technology projects in terms of how to drive efficiency through the organization. But enough about me. Today's conversation is this. So I divided our conversation or the agenda item into 4 different areas. First of all, number 1, the ability to drive sales performance. And what that one's about is it's more about the leader. What is the expectation of the leader? What is a leader supposed to do? And how are we going to drive performance through leadership? The second agenda item I have for today is the people. But this one, the people is more about the team. What drives your sales team? We want to understand motivators. We want to talk about the culture. We want to talk about incentives and recognition. Then there is the process part. the playbook. So what is repeatable? I always say the key to sales is how repeatable is the process. I can't repeat hiring top salespeople and wish that I get the best rep around. And long gone are the day that people believe in that as well. So the process of putting a sales playbook that is repeatable. And the fourth topic I put in here for today was the idea of technology. We're doing quite a bit of projects around technology lately because number one, through COVID and even before COVID, but through COVID, it just ballooned in terms of the number of sales tech available from an automation standpoint, from a transparency standpoint. So what technologies are available, how do you go about streamlining those tools, et cetera, is what that last section is about. Now, I'm gonna stop sharing. Any 1, 2, 3, or 4? Do you guys want to put that in the chat and let me know what's your preference? A ton of 1s and sprinkle 2s and 3s. Okay, so let's start off with 1 person. Okay. And then Ruplin is going to go through this and tell me that if the next one is 2 or 3, all right? Great. All right, let's talk about 1. The ability to drive sales performance as a leader, okay? So what do you think are the effective quality of what are the quality of an effective sales leader in your mind? Can you put it in the chat and let me know?
Empowerment, motivational, people person, trusted, honest and transparent communication, lots of trust, supportive, coach,
Perfect.
empathetic, visionary, good one, Lori.
Yeah, visionary is a good one, Lori.
Ethical.
Yeah, I saw that.
Builds relationships.
That's a great list, guys. And the truth of it is, it has to be a mixture of all that. Sorry, I have a hands on the floor. Ruplin?
Hi there, Ada. Did you have a question? I think we're okay, Agnes.
Okay, great. And it's a mixture of all that, as you mentioned earlier, in terms of what are the quality of a sales leader. And the truth of the matter is, I guess I want to bring it out here is, long gone are the day that you give someone a quota, you set them free, and they have to do something, okay? It is not seen that way, and honestly, it's not expected to be that way anymore. So my sales leader put on many hats, and some we'll talk about. A visionary, we talked about Lori. So the good and the bad. My good leaders are those that are visionary, empowering, transparent, collaborative, and coaching. I think we got pretty much all 5 of those on the list today. And the bad are the ones that are short-sighted, maybe they micromanage, they're secretive, authoritative, and dictatorship. Okay. And when you think about that, I'll give you a classic example. I have some clients that are a bit, I don't say old school, but they've been in business for the last 30 years. They have never shared revenue numbers with their reps. Because they feel like it's on a need to know basis, right? Or I was actually pulled into a conversation last Friday, actually, because they're manufacturing, and the sales guy is fighting with the head of ops, so the top sales guy, is fighting with the head of ops. So which I had to go in and tell them, you know what, that's pretty normal, guys. Like I don't expect my top sales guy to be best friends with my head of ops either. They're naturally going to fight when one person is customer centric and the other person is company centric in terms of cost. So I just need to go in there and make sure they fight fairly, right? Not fight and communicate. So, but part of the issue is I think there's an issue around the president actually walking in and say, sales is none of your business what we do in operations. And I think that caused a fire because staff nowadays wants to be a part of the puzzle. And I think that's where the empowerment and the collaborative piece come in. The culture have shifted. Long gone are the day that my sales reps are the lone wolves of the organization and they do what they want to do. I think there's quite a bit of change that happened in the last, I would say 7-10 years that really made the cultural shift. And if your organization haven't made that shift, definitely start looking at that shift, because that's what's not only for the culture of your organization, but also in terms of who you will attract as talent. That's what they're looking for now. All right. We talked a lot. I mean, the main point here is, what is the role of a sales leader, Agnes? Like, aren't I just here to drive revenue, right? And in all fairness, it's true, as a sales leader, we're here to drive revenue. But how we drive revenue have changed. I think that's what we want to talk about. So number one, we talked about inspire, we talk about guide, we talk about empower. And depending, I think one of the message earlier is, well, it depends on who you're talking to. And that's absolutely true, okay? And one common mistake of my sales leader is the fact that, and in general, that is a leadership constraint, is leaders tends to manage or lead the way they like to be managed or lead, okay? And their natural inclination is, and you're not a leader for no reason. So if you're a leader, likely you're an overachiever, type A personality, wants to, wants autonomy, you will run with the problem, so on and so forth, right? And naturally, you're going to, quote unquote, motivate your staff this exact same way. And this is where management gets hard, okay? If you have 5 reps, I can guarantee you 5 reps will have maybe 4 different personalities, 4 different types of motivation style, 4 different types of way that you can empower them, okay? Being in sales, the wonderful part is, one, I always 7 years back, I would say, okay, at least one thing you know for sure, if you have a good, you have qualified salespeople, and I'm going to go into that in a little bit. If you qualify salespeople within your sales team, at least one thing I know is constant, which is money. You're not going to get into sales if money wasn't a motivation factor. So I can always rely on some sort of an incentive to drive behavior. But trends have also been changing in the last 3-4 years. When we look at the sales team right now, I've also realized that there are things beyond money that also drive behavior now. So now I don't even have that one constant I used to have 10-15 years ago in terms of motivating staff. Okay, so far so good? Okay, now, but there are a few constants I put in the chart today for us to have a conversation. And this is what the today's session will be about. It's actually coming up with action plan for each of these areas. So first of all, number one is set goals and targets. Okay, I'm going to take a wild guess here that if you're here, you're coming to these sessions, number one isn't something that I need to work on with you. Okay, I'm going to take a wild guess. But where I want to articulate the difference between a good goal or good target versus one that no one can do anything with is how detailed are you in terms of setting these targets? So for example, Rob, I want you to make $2.5 million for me in revenue this year. This is your target, okay? And based on that, and I might even go as far as saying, well, I want it all in the HVAC industry, okay? I might be even detailed enough to say that. But Rob may or may not know what to do with that $2.5 million. As a leader, we have to break it down for him. So for example, we might say, hey, you know what? In order for you to pick up HVAC industry, you might have to go to association events. If you were able to pick up 30 leads in an association events, I'll say you'll be able to close 1 or 2 from that 30. Each of our average deal size is $50,000 to get $2.5 million. You're looking at about closing maybe 40 leads a year. So how many of these events do you have to go to? Or as a leader, I don't like to put all my eggs in a basket. So my gang, they go to these networking events for sure. They actively maintain a circle of influence, right? Internally, we call it connectors. So they naturally have to connect with 5 connectors and have an active relationship with them for referral, both ways. We also do cold calling. We have a cold calling team here. So various different way of achieving the target, but everyone needs to be able to see a very clearly how that $2.5 million will be achieved. If your organization or any of your rep is unable to articulate to me tomorrow, if I head into the office, as to exactly how they get to their target, then there's something to be done in step 1. Now, let's go to step 2. Step 2 is sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard. It's the idea of creating a vision and then motivating the team. This is my bridge between the old and the new world, okay? The new world is all about vision and motivating. It's about how you talk to them. It's about whether they want to be on your bus, okay? And it is very funny. Internally, we've always debated about how excited can someone be selling a toilet. So we always have this debate internally about, well, you know, if we sell some pretty sexy toy, then of course it's easy for somebody to get very excited. I just realized what I just said. I don't mean it that way, of course. Okay, but what I'm trying to say is, and then the counterpart of our head of consulting always say, well, you know, it's nice that someone's selling like a drone. Of course, it's easy to sell a drone. But if I'm asking someone to sell a toilet, am I going to easily as excited have someone embrace selling a toilet? So now, not recently, like now we've had them for the last 18 months, we have a toilet client. And then I realized you can absolutely get excited about selling toilets. Because when I went to their warehouse, their reps wouldn't stop talking about toilets to me. So I realized everything in this, no matter what your product is, it is about vision and motivating your team to align with your vision. They have to be equally as passionate talking about your product as you would, or as the founder would. Okay, articulating so that they're on the bus is very important. You can test your team, right? You can hear in the pitch, you know, someone that's passionate versus someone that isn't. Okay, I can even internally, I don't mind telling you, I have one guy new to our cold calling team, doesn't know sales, like just brand new graduate, doesn't know sales. We're coaching them, okay? We're training him. I have a very senior guy doing the same role, been in cold calling for the last, I would say 20 years. Sure, the 20-year-old veteran has the technique, but my new guy has the passion. You can hear it, okay? Now you just want the mesh of both. I always say technique can be trained. Passion though, you need to ignite. And that both of those roles are jobs of the sales leader. Okay, so the thing to do here, the takeaway here is go back and think about the handful of sales rep that you have. Can you identify who is here? And when they articulate, they're very passionate about your product, and it needs to show. The people that aren't as passionate, you know, you have some work there to enlighten. Okay, now next we have provide guidance and support. Of course, as a sales leader navigating through, you know, some pretty rough water out there in the marketplace at the moment, we need to be that coach. We need to be that quarterback. And oftentimes we need to be there to be the closer, to provide whatever support it is necessary for this person to be able to do their job. I always say that as a sales leader, my job isn't to close sales. If you think, like I have two different type of leaders, and one type of leader, I'm going to call you guys out because I bet you with numbers today, we do have quite a number of you here today. Someone's going to be in that boat. And when quarter ends, okay, at quarter end, 3 weeks before quarter end, if your team haven't achieved target or is not pacing against target, is your number one inclination to pick up the phone and do some dialing yourself? Terry is giving me that look. Yes, if you are inclined, Patrice is like, no. If you're inclined to pick up the phone to make up the difference for your team for that quarter, then I need you to change some of that behavior. Because it's more important for you to be growing your 8 salespeople and each getting a little bit of the pie so that they know that's what they need to do. If you come in and save them every single quarter, my reps are not going to grow because they know there'll always be a safety net in the back to help me make my quota. And that is not going, it can save them. I have no doubt in my mind you guys will be able to close that gap if you need to. It's not a skill thing I am questioning here. It's the fact that it's not, number one is setting bad precedent, but the other thing is it's also not making my sales team very scalable. If I have 8 reps, I can go save the day. But if I have 16, can I still save the day? If I have 24, can I still save the day? I'm not making my sales playbook very, very repeatable. Okay. Last but not least, and you see that right in the bottom across, is the idea of building the sales culture for continuous improvement. Okay. And that is something that have come to light a lot in recent years. So before, when we talk about improvement, we're always talking about sales playbook improvements. Where are we going to have better conversion? I always say, okay, if you want increased sales, you need better conversion rate, you need more on the top of the funnel, and increase average deal size and shorten your churn. Those are the 4 factors in really whether you can increase your revenue, right? And traditionally in the past, when we go out and we do training and coaching, we've always focused on the conversion rate and obviously the top of the funnel. Those are the 2 things that client tends to come to us with. How can we increase top of the funnel more? How can we improve our conversion rate more? And those are the 2 factors that we work extensively with clients about. But I would say in the last 3 years or so, the other thing that have come to light from a continuous improvement standpoint is, Agnes, how can I decrease the number of days to close the churn? Okay. I don't care if the churn is bad. I don't care if they are out of the pipe. I just care that we churn them so that I'm not wasting resources. So from that continuous improvement standpoint, leaders has to be looking at continuous improvement like there's no tomorrow. Partially it's because there's so much technology. That's the part that have come And when we talk about churn and we talk about decreasing the number of days to close, I'm always looking at how technology can help. I'm also looking at the rep active client ratio. With certain technology in mind, I used to, some of my clients, they can have one rep, 40 active client at any given time. And now, and when we walk into any situation, when we're doing a tech review, we're looking at, hey, can one of my rep now manage 60 clients instead, 80 clients instead, 100 clients instead? So now that actually inadvertently have increased my pipe because my tech is able to handle the ratio better. And obviously with these technology, I'm obviously hoping that the conversion ratio wouldn't drop off based on putting some of these in place. So far, so good? Okay. From a continuous improvement standpoint though, here's another tip for you. Internally, and for some of our clients, we do this one really nifty exercise that I've really grown to love in the last little bit, is what we call a quarterly disruptor. So the team would meet together every quarter. I know you guys do annual sales kickoff. I get that. I'm going to leave that aside. Every quarter, the team meet together and they go through 4 questions. I can't exactly remember what they are now, but I know the first one is, if someone were to take over your job tomorrow, what would they do differently in your job? And it's a brainstorming session in 4 different areas to really drive the conversation around continuous improvement. And at the end of the session, we come back with 3 actionable items for the next quarter to do. So every quarter, I have a process in place for continuous improvement for my sales team. Okay. That have been, I would say, one of the best continuous improvement process that we have put in place internally for the last few years that yield the best results. So far, so good. Fantastic. So the other thing, of course, as the role of a sales manager is to build that high-performing sales team. Tons of best practice here. I just picked the one that I want to highlight for today's conversation. Number 1, of course, is to hire and recruit the top talent. Sorry, something is not happening. Can you guys still see the screen?
Yep, we can see it, Agnes.
Great. Okay, so hiring and recruiting top talent. So we have a separate webinar for that. Feel free to join next time. But I always like to tell my sales leaders, hiring sales rep isn't the same as hiring a bookkeeper. So if your organization is hiring a bookkeeper the same way you're hiring a rep, then you're not doing it right. When was the last time a top sales rep applied for a job? Like never. Why is that? Because, well, if I work at this workplace, me as a sales leader is moving to another place. What is the number 1 thing I'm going to do? What is the first thing? I'm going to grab my top sales guy to come with me as soon as I have a headcount available, right? So naturally, that's how sales talent moves around. So that aligns more closely with how we run sales pipeline than the way that traditional HR people runs recruiting process. So the hiring and recruiting of top sales talent needs to be looked at a little differently, number 1. Number 2 is the training and onboarding. I think this have gotten better over the years in terms of understanding the importance of spending time, money, resources on training and onboarding new staff. You have to keep in mind, right? There's financial gains here. If traditionally, it will take a new guy 9 months to be proficient at their job. If I'm able to expedite that, and that guy is now effective at 4 months, I've gained 5 months worth of productivity. Guys, don't forget. So there's actually mathematical equation in onboarding to ensure that the people are as effectively as possible, as quick as possible. So what does that onboarding plan look like from a coaching standpoint, from having a buddy system standpoint, from them understanding product knowledge standpoint, technique standpoint? So honing in and having an onboarding program that nips each of those in the bud becomes very important. Next is the fostering of collaboration in what I call a healthy competition environment. You're not going to be in sales if you're not naturally competitive. This field just naturally attracts people that are competitive. That's great. I always say, right? Same as our target audience when we go out and reach for clients. If I know these people are one type of avatar or two type of avatar, it's actually much easier for me to manage this team. So once you understand that's why we used to be full management consulting firm, and then we realized people don't really want to deal with sales transformation. And when we hone in on that, we loved it. People don't like to touch salespeople for whatever negative connotations out there, but we love it because we understand them, we understand what drives them, and to be fair, they're reasonable once you are reasonable with them. So fostering, and one of the key here is most salespeople are competitive, and understanding that they're competitive means you can drive many different campaigns to get these people to work appropriately and roll in the same direction as what you want them to, where you want them to roll. But at the same time, as much as I want it to be competitive environment, it needs to foster that collaboration environment. And there is definitely ways to do that. Long gone are the day that people are lone wolves. Like, that's no longer the culture here. The lone wolf being the top sales guy isn't quite the thing as it was 20 years ago. People are looking for a more collaborative environment, and they're naturally competitive. So of course, in today's language, we call that gamification, but definitely a healthy dose of that. Last but not least is developing and nurturing sales skill. So understanding and what kind of sales skills are we looking for? And I can generically tell you, they need to be coachable. They need to be naturally curious. There are some natural competency that we deal with salespeople that we know having those competency will get them, to a B+ player, right? And then there are very specific company-based competencies that would get them to that extra A-, A+ player. And you need to develop that within your sales team by looking at existing sales performance of the teammates that are doing well and really analyzing what is helping this. Like, why is this person closing at 52% closing ratio and this, our team average is about 34? Sorry, what does that look like? And analyzing that becomes important, because analyzing that actually feeds back to number one. Because of course, in number one, there is criteria and competency that we look for in terms of scorecard of who is a good potential hire here. So all that sort of come together in full circle in terms of looking at competency and talent. So far, so good? All right, we talked a whole lot about healthy culture. So what does that mean, and what are some tangible action items you can do around healthy culture? So number one, definitely is that vision and mission I was telling you about. You can't have people rowing in the same direction if they don't know what the direction is, or if they don't agree with that direction, okay? So communicating that and making sure people understand and they're motivated by your vision. One thing that my leaders tend to take for granted is they know. I told them at this year's kickoff, okay, when was the last time your husband or wife told you something and you're like, oh shit, I completely forgot? Okay, so same way, best practice around communication is actually, it's gonna sound bad, but the best way of communication is saying your message. And I'm going to prefer that you say it different ways each time, but communicating that message 3 to 7 times within a 21-day period. It's actually very specific, these data. That gets an imprint in their mind in terms of what you said getting them to connect the dot for themselves. 5 to 7 times in 21 days. Okay? Whatever that message is for you guys. Now, next, I told you, reps are incentivized or motivated by incentives. I used to say money, now a balance. Okay? You gotta have a very robust incentive structure that works for your avatar. You probably attract a particular type of salespeople. Okay? And having those salespeople, you need to understand that avatar. Of course, I cannot have, Bobby can take Fridays off and so gets bonuses. As an organization, I can't allow you to do that. But understanding the avatar, understanding who you attract, how are we going to build our incentive structure accordingly? I can give you a hint here though. Most likely, you can group the inside sales rep and understand the inside sales rep culture and what that looks like, and they're incentivized accordingly. Because you can do incentives by role. I just don't want Bobby to get something and Rob to get something else, right? In the same role, right? So having that very robust incentive structure, whatever that is, and it should be obviously company-centric, but also taking into consideration the type of people you tend to hire. So if you want to maintain, let's say, a structure of flexibility, if you want to attract people that wants the flexible structure, then you build in the incentive structure so that you have a very flexible work culture or very flexible work hour culture. So who is it that you want to attract is how you want to set up your culture, assuming, right, that you can stomach that culture. Okay. I have clients that are very specific around certain things that it's big no for them. And that's okay. Is who you stand, like where you stand as an organization and who you are as an organization. And it's okay to have that line in the sand. But within that line in the sand, what does that look like to attract the right people to you? Next is foster open and transparent communication. Like I said, long gone are the day that you don't share numbers, don't share incentive, don't share anything, okay? Be as transparent as possible, because I can tell you nowadays they're gonna find out anyways. So you want to control the narrative around that to begin with. So you want that transparent communication. You want them to understand the good and the bad, right? I'm not just telling you the good stuff, or I'm not just telling you the bad stuff. I'm telling you everything, right? Do you still want to be here? That's how you attract new talent to your organization, okay? And I think I'm seeing some of the traditional approach really developing and turning the corner nowadays, because the transparent communication is another reason to attract younger talent. So that is another important one. Next is what I told you from the beginning, was a continuous improvement mindset. And I'm going to look at it from two ways. Number one, of course, there is a continuous improvement piece in terms of revenue. We all chasing after revenue with the same resource, okay? So continuous improvement is going to get you a smarter way to get that done. But the other, I can tell you from a tech standpoint, is high performers, competent people don't want to be doing the same thing over and over again, okay? They want challenges. And cutting and pasting emails is a thing in the past, from the past. Things like doing manual quote is a thing of the past. So if they see that other people are doing it differently, then they're still in this sort of company that's not embracing change, embracing improvement. You're going to lose your top talent. You're not going to lose your bottom talent. You're going to lose your top talent. So you want to make sure you're also improving, not only from a revenue standpoint, but also from an employee satisfaction standpoint. All right. I'm going to take a small breather here and take any questions. Was that a good section for you guys? Okay, cool.
We do have a couple questions. Sorry, Agnes. We've just got two questions here. One from Matthew asking, Agnes, what do you find gets in the way or impacts sales leaders' ability to be this new style of progressive sales leader from your experience?
I think it's mindset. I mean, we are human too, right? So if what got me here to be very successful, I've followed this formula for the last 20 years, and now I am manager of whatever company or leaders of the company or owner, whatever it is, right? Why can't I be the same way? Like, why do I have to change? And the truth of the matter is you don't have to change. It's whether you want to embrace this new style to yield you even better result. Because like I'm always of the mind that you have two things, right? You can control the thing that you can control, and then you leave the stuff that you cannot control. Like you can't be angry about that, right? But what you have to remember is that external environment have changed so much in the last 3, 5, 7 years that if you're still doing sales the way that you do sales 15 years ago, even 10 years ago, it's not that you're not making money, it's you're not maximizing what you can make or bring to the team. And to be fair, also is that the people you're working with have also changed. So their expectation have also changed. So if you are not motivating them appropriately, these people, that's why the average, if you look at the average of churn or employee churns, is also have decreased significantly over the years. Like long gone are the day that we have lifers, right? And that's okay. I'm not looking for lifers either. I think I want new blood into the organization, but I want to keep the one that I'm good at. That's good for me, right? So the average churn right now, like the first stats is crazy. If a first year rep, so if you're hiring a new rep coming into a business development role, the churn for that role is 39%. If you're able to keep that person past the first year, then their average lifespan of someone in that type of role is 24 months. It's crazy. So now, if you think about the amount of time that you spend coaching this person to be better than where they were yesterday, you're naturally going to want to keep them for as long as possible, right? So that's what that whole first part was about is, I don't want them to churn 20. I'm going to assume that I'm going to be able to keep them after a year, but I don't want them to churn in 24 months either. So the whole first section was around, hey, if I'm a better leader, then it's not going to be 24 months. I'm going to create this environment that they cannot leave. So is it going to be 39 months? Is it going to be 40 months? Is it going to be 50 months? But I know for sure it's not going to be 50 years, right? And that's okay as long as your mindset is in the right place. Cool.
Thanks, Agnes. One more from Ryan here, if we have the time. What are some strategies we can use to identify strong salespeople and hire more effectively? Is this industry specific, or are there some general sales truths that we can follow?
So I can't remember top of my head. Ryan, right? Yeah, Ryan. I will email you those 5 if you give Ruplin your email. But there are 5 generic ones that we look for when we do recruiting, and then we'll add based on the industry that we're working with. Okay, and also depending on what seniority we're hiring. Some clients like, you know what, Agnes, and we'll be very realistic in terms of hiring too, right? They're like, Agnes, this is my first sales guy. I don't have a sales background. We are an operations first company. I just need to try the sales thing out, right? I can no longer do sales. So, and Agnes, I'm not a very good sales leader. I'm the founder of the company. I need someone more senior, right? I need someone that's going to be able to run with it. Those will come based on the scenario you're hiring for, right? And now I have a client that tells me, Agnes, you know what? We're not going, we don't have a lot of budget for this hire, but we know we need one, right? Then we'll set up appropriately and say, hey, then the onboarding has to be a little different, right? Knowing that you're hiring a $50,000 inside sales rep, and then laying out the job description approach. Because I don't care if I'm hiring someone for 50 or if I'm hiring someone for 170, right? The key there is making sure that the person is in the right job role and I have a ladder for them to be able to climb to success. So if I'm measuring my $50,000 inside sales rep person to that $170,000 senior sales rep, I'm setting up my $50,000 guy for success, for failure, right? So that's what we have to do as sales leader, is to be realistic about scenario like that and know the outcome. So if I know I'm hiring someone off, I say fresh out of school, I know that my onboarding will have to be done a particular way. So my onboarding is going to be also different depending on who you hire. And going back to what I said in the deck earlier, right? It's onboarding plan. That onboarding plan isn't across the board the same for the same sales, like for sales rep, every sales rep. It's not, right? So that's what my leader is supposed to do. Like mentoring Susie is probably going to be very different than mentoring Rob for various different reasons. And that's okay, but that's my job as a rep, because maybe Susie is fantastic at opening doors, but she can't close for beans. And maybe Rob is the other way. So in coaching, we have to make sure we're coaching and we're providing the right I'm not going to give you diabetes medicine if you have cholesterol, no help. And that's what you're supposed to do as a sales leader. Cool. All right, looks like we are doing topic 3. All right, let's start off with topic 3. I'm not going to get through everything. Maybe, have you thought that maybe that's why I set it up this way, so that you can talk to Ruplin? You can talk to Ruplin about the 2-day course next month. Okay, but let's continue to where we want to be today. All joking aside. All right, so sales playbook that is repeatable. First of all, I'm going to ask you, do you have a sales playbook? I'm very interested to see in the chat. So I'm going to come off screen and see. Do you have a sales playbook or not? Yes or no? Good. Okay. For those who have one, fantastic. I'm going to ask a follow-up question. If you have one, how many do you have? Okay, that's number 1. And then for those who have no, I'm going to give you some very simple steps today to start your first one. Okay, for those that have one, and the people that have a sales playbook, they're probably wondering, what the heck am I asking? How many do you have? It's in the one sales playbook. And every firm does it differently, but our firm philosophy is that you should have a playbook for every avatar or every scenario that's different. So if you have 7 avatars, you should at least have 7 playbook, is what our firm believes is. Because the scenario of sales would be different, the conversion rate per avatar is different. Now, let's go here. All right. For those who don't have a sales playbook, let's talk a little bit about the good and bad of sales playbook, okay? Let's focus on doing a good one. Good one would have strategic alignment. It would have a comprehensive, actionable plan. It should be customer-centric. A lot of sales playbook is very rep-centric, and I love it. Like if I go in an organization, they have a sales playbook, they have a rep-centric sales playbook. Hey, that's okay. At least we have one. But I guess a step up would be, what is that customer-centric sales playbook look like? It needs to be clear. There need to be clarity and simplistic to follow. Because a lot of times when I hire new people, sales playbook is the first thing we dump at them. So if they can't understand, then it's a bad sales playbook. Last but not least, there's a continuous improvement piece, and I'll rush through just so you get to the content piece, and I can take maybe a couple more questions. Here is a sample of what a good sales playbook look like per avatar, per scenario, depending on how your firm breaks out sales playbooks. Of course, there's an introduction and the strategy of what that particular play that we're trying to do. Then there should be target market and that particular ideal customer profile that we're dealing with in this particular playbook. It gets down to the nth degree, guys. Like I have sales playbook that tells me that, two different type of marketing personnel. One is a marketing director, male between the age of 42 and 55, live in Oakville, take the GO train to downtown to work. Versus I have sales manager, 23 to 28, female, live on King Street, enjoy events. Okay, different type of customer profile, but down to that degree. When you drill it down to that degree, a sales rep is able to figure out their trends and what they like versus not like. I always tell my client when I was doing a bit more of the prospecting piece back in the day, I don't love sports. I mean, look at me. I don't love sports, but you can be sure that I know all the score from last night. You can be sure I know at least from the Toronto teams, guys. And this for the Toronto team, I know all the score last night. Who is the best player? What is the most controversial conversation right now around the sports arena? Because my target audience likes to talk about that. I don't know the sports for beans, but I need to recite that if I'm going to be a good rep. You have to understand what is the role of a good rep and what you're supposed to do as a good rep. And a good rep is beyond just a matter that I can pitch and I can do a demo. Okay. Understand what you're coaching your salespeople to do. Number 3 is the messaging and the value proposition for that group, what you're selling, have ability to drive the pain and have those pain conversations. What does the sales process look like from beginning to close? What's the methodology of closing? We need a section around handling objection for this particular type. Where is the objection going to come up? Are we going to take it as a rebuttal or preemption? Number 6 are what type of tools we're doing. What kind of, if I'm prospecting, am I looking at Zoom info? If I'm looking at Zoom info, exactly what filter am I using to get to my call list? What are the sales training available for this area? When are we going to talk about certain topics? Sales performance, how are we going to measure our success? Also customer success and account management. How do you foster that long-term relationship? And last but not least, how do we go about what is the mechanism for continuous improvement for this particular playbook? Okay. I think that's all I have time to cover today, guys. Ruplin can invite me back for other sessions, but that's all the time I have. I want to save the last few minutes for questions because I find most people enjoy that piece and take away that the most. Anything I can help with right now? I can also tell you I'm like the only Agnes Land in the world, in the LinkedIn world. So if you have any questions that you would like to shoot at me, look for me on LinkedIn, and I would be able to address those as well.
Agnes, lots of questions on recruitment and hiring today. I think it might be a good idea to to reoffer our last webinar on recruitment and hiring. That might be a good one for the fall.
Absolutely. I saw that coming through.
And
we just I'm laughing because we just did that session, guys.
Yeah. The other thing that I will say for Agnes, if I may speak on your behalf, there is a great blog on Change Connect's website, and there are lots of resources on top tips for hiring as well. So if you haven't visited Change Connect's website, some fantastic pieces of advice there, 100%.
Okay.
Are there any other questions on today's session at all? A couple of people asking about the presentation. Yet this session has been recorded, and you will absolutely get the recording after this. For those of you who may not know, as I mentioned earlier, as CPSA's new offering, all attendees will receive a certificate of attendance, as well as the recording in the same email. The certificate of attendance can be shared on LinkedIn as well. So for those of you on your CPSA designation pathway, maintaining your professional development units, today's session will be worth one PDU. So you'll receive that with the recording afterwards. Matthew, thanks for your question. Where does the 39% churn data point come from?
I just saw that. I can't remember. I think it was either a sales agency sales sales agency or a Harvard Business Review or a Deloitte report. I'll look it up and then I'll let you guys know.
Well, if there are no more questions, I'll let everybody have their last couple minutes from today's session. Huge thanks, Agnes, again for today, and we'll have to book in that sales recruitment and retention webinar for the fall.
Fantastic. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
everybody, for joining me. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.